right, so a little bit earlier today, I talked about who the Sharks actually gained in free agency, but I haven't talked about who they lost yet. So let's get into it. There's 5 guys that have either left, and there's some of those 5 that are planning on leaving. So let's talk about the first one. Obviously, talked about him yesterday, Martin Jones, who would not return to the Sharks. He will sign a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers, and it was a 1-year, $2 million deal, which is probably pretty safe. A 1-year deal for Jones is probably a lot safer than what the Sharks had for him 6 years back in the day. But I think it's a pretty smart signing for the Flyers. Obviously, I'm not going to go into too much detail in my opinion on it because I made a whole video on it yesterday about Jones. But for Carter Hart, they're solid goalie already. I think it's a good backup, and with Jones, who has been struggling, I think this change of scenery is definitely good for him. I know he had a couple choices. I know the Capitals were thinking about pursuing Jones, but I think it's good that the Flyers ultimately did. And that's pretty much how it is. I think the Sharks, they needed to get rid of him. I think it's just he needed to change the scenery. But I'm happy with the way everything turned out. So yeah, Jones will be a Philly Flyer for at least 1 season. And yeah, pretty good signing to back up Carter Hart. But yeah, $2 million, and yeah, so that's the first one. The next one that was pretty notable was Curtis Gabriel. He was signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs to a 1-year, $750,000 deal. Gabriel was a guy I liked. He didn't have any goals last year or points, which was pretty not super good. He played in 11 games, and the thing I remember about him most was fighting. He was a good fighter. I'll give him that. Whenever we played Vegas, he'd get in a fight, which, he was a good fighter. He would, turn the energy around with the Sharks when they needed it the most. He's been on 3 different teams before. This will be his 4th team. He got drafted by Minnesota, then went to the Devils, and then played with the Sharks, obviously, last season. But, I think the Leafs maybe will need him. I don't know. He'll probably spend time maybe in the minors. We'll see. It's hard to tell, especially with a contract like this. He's 28. He skated in 11 games, and actually he did have some goals with the Barracuda, but none in the actual NHL level with the Sharks. He does get a lot of penalties because he does fight a lot, so that's kind of something he's known for. But he is an Ontario native, so we'll see if the Leafs are a good fit for him. But he just really wasn't given that much of an opportunity with the Sharks, and when he did, he didn't really rise to the occasion. So we'll see how he does with Toronto, and they're obviously a pretty big market in terms, although they're not like the best team in terms of championships. They're where players go to kind of do good sometimes. So we'll see how he does. And he also was a finalist for the King Clancy Award, so that's kind of a good award as a good human being, and he's just a good dude. So I'm sad to see him go in that sense, but in terms of on ice performance, he wasn't super good. So that's everything that happened for losses, right? Like, we only lost 2 guys officially, but there are 3 guys today that became unrestricted free agents. And the first one, Patrick Marleau. Patrick Marleau, best San Jose Shark of all time. That's pretty objective. I mean, he's played the most games in NHL history. He leads the Sharks in most categories in terms of, being the leader. And I mean, it sucks to see Marleau possibly go, but I think, it's either retirement or he just goes to a cup contender. Like, I don't see Marleau, wanting to go to just a team to play. I feel like either Marleau's going to retire, he's either going to go to a cup contender, or he's going to stick with the Sharks. But the thing is, he's an unrestricted free agent, so he is probably going to leave. He's 41, so I don't really see him playing much longer. But I'm just glad we had him for the record and had him for all these times and memories and stuff. So it sucks if Marleau does end up leaving, which it does look like he will. The next one was Marcus Sorensen, who, he's been on the Sharks a little bit, for about, I think he was, 5 years on the Sharks, including last year. He has 31 career goals. He's become an unrestricted free agent. There has been trade talks with him before, I've heard about. So that was pretty interesting. He played in about half the games last year. So, he's only 28. So we'll see what happens with him. He's an unrestricted free agent. And the final one was Greg Pateryn. I don't think Greg Pateryn appeared in a game for the Sharks. He was what the Sharks, one of the players the Sharks got in the Dubnyk trade. Or maybe he played in one game, but I don't think he really did much for the Sharks. He was on the Avalanche before, but he was in the Dubnyk trade. I'm pretty sure that happened last season. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that the Sharks are losing so far. So Jones will go to Philadelphia, Gabriel to Toronto, and then these 3 guys, we don't know where they're going to go. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys later. Go Sharks!